What's up, guys? Garrett from Sheer Drop Wrestling here, going to be talking about the episode of Raw that happened last night, August 28th. It is our go home episode of Raw. Obviously, we have Payback this Saturday. Looking forward to that. The episode of Raw tonight I actually found pretty enjoyable. I just recorded it, so I was able to fast forward through all of the commercials. So I don't know if that played a factor into my enjoyment of it, of being able to kind of watch a condensed version of Raw. Without going as condensed as like the Hulu and missing out on things like Andy and I did last week. So thankfully I was able to catch the whole show. Like I said, was just able to fast forward through a lot of the commercials. Kind of just expedited the process of, watching it this morning and getting it out of the way. So Raw actually opens with a match this week. I thought that was really, really cool. It's been a while since that's happened. Normally it's a lot of talky bits and talky segments to kind of lead into the main event. But it never actually starts out with action, and I thought that was really cool. Just a great way to start the night. We get Sami Zayn and Damian Priest. While Sami is coming out, we're also getting that little bit of a recap of what happened last week with the tag match, and then it ended in the DQ. Cody Rhodes comes out. It's now that 6-man tag match, and just kind of that whole what happened last week and Sami's comments of like the whole, better luck next time. That is the motive for this match here, where it was requested for Damian Priest to kind of get, his revenge, so to speak, on Sami Zayn. So we have Sami Zayn and Damian Priest in the opening contest. It's also noted that Sami and Kevin will officially be defending the tag titles against Priest and Balor at Payback. That's a match that I'm excited for. I'm just super invested in the Judgment Day story. I'm not quite tired of it yet. It's not to the point where like the Bloodline's gotten, where it feels like it's gone on too long. It's definitely the thing that I look forward to most every Monday, just catching up with everything that's going on. And I hope that they do something interesting with it. There's a lot of different ways the Payback card could end up. There's a lot of different ways where championships could float around, especially around the Judgment Day. So that's just going to be something to look forward to. As far as the match itself, it's a pretty standard affair. It's a good way to open up the night. Sami is in control early. I have that he did a cool, kind of like a ricochet or a springboard type moonsault onto Priest from the outside. That was a good way to, just get a little high spot in there, pop the crowd. It's a lot of Sami in the first part of the match. He seems to be just kind of taking it to Priest, and Priest doesn't have really an answer for anything that Sami is doing. Priest does eventually get the upper hand, though. Priest is on the outside, and Sami goes for a dive off the top rope, and Priest ends up catching him, and then hits him with some sort of like flatliner or like an STO type maneuver onto the announce desk, and then we go to commercial. Coming back from the commercial, it's just kind of still Priest is in control. There's a sequence that I jotted down specifically where Sami does another dive to the outside, and then everything gets back into the ring. Sami goes for another dive off the top. Priest catches him. He goes for a South of Heaven. Sami instead reverses that into a Blue Thunder Bomb and gets a really close near fall. I wouldn't have complained if that was the finish. That just seemed like a really good, like, hey, I got you this time. But the match continues on after that, not for too much longer. The finish, Sami he hits the exploder on Priest in the corner, and he goes to the other end of the ring. Of course, he's looking for the haluva kick, and JD McDonough interferes in this match yet again. He ends up holding on to Sami's legs, so Sami can't, run and kick Priest. Priest is able to capitalize. He does hit the South of Heaven, and then he gets the win. After the match, though, this is a lot of where the purpose of this match was kind of set up. It was more so about what happened after this match and how it played out through the rest of the night, rather than the match being the important part here. So Priest is kind of like shoving JD, and he's kind of like, I didn't ask for this. I don't need you here. Like, get out of my business. And then JD is, like, well, I'm the reason you won just now. So Priest kind of leaves in a huff. He just is, just leaving, going back up the ramp. The camera is on like a really close-up shot of JD, and you hear the crowd start to come alive again. And so JD turns around, and we get the wide shot, and then it turns out KO is back in there, and Sami is back on his feet as well. JD gets hit with a stunner and a haluva kick for his troubles, and that will close out the first segment. I thought it was a really good way to open up the night. I know I've said that a couple times already. I just enjoy Sami Zayn. I really enjoy what the Judgment Day is doing. Just having all those story beats tied together and actually opening up the night with a match instead of a segment that leads to this match, I thought was just a really good way to immediately pull me in from the start, and it definitely worked. After that, it just cuts backstage real quick. It's just Seth Rollins. He's, not warming up for his match, but he's kind of just like backstage thinking about things. He said last week that he's going to call Nakamura out tonight. And so the Michael Cole and Wade Barrett are just talking about how that's probably what's going to happen. We also see New Day warming up and the Viking Raiders warming up, and they are going to have a match later on in the night. Comes back from commercial after that, and we see Drew McIntyre. He is backstage, and he's holding a paper. It is a picture of him that Riddle has photoshopped bro gear onto. And Riddle, is like, all teams need matching gear, bro. Talks about maybe they can even get some matching kilts if, the trunks aren't McIntyre's thing. He's like, okay, well, we can do the kilts. Doesn't go over too well. Drew doesn't really pay it a whole lot of attention, as he probably should. But they talk about how they are going to be not in the corner of the New Day for the New Day Viking Raiders match, but they are going to be out there. And they do end up being at the announce desk for most of the duration of that match. There's some shenanigans that happen just about, every time someone who isn't involved in a match is at the announce table. Tonight is no exception. We get a little bit of a video package for Raquel and her upcoming match with Rhea at Payback. And then there is also a match card showing that we're getting the Becky Lynch and Zoe Stark Falls Count Anywhere match. It's very like promo and recap heavy, this little section of Raw here, because then after that is the thing about John Cena's return and him not only coming back next week, but it's also revealed that he's going to stick around for a little while. I think it's 8 consecutive dates that he's going to have. So we're going to have a little fall of Cena, a couple months of Cena around, which will be nice, especially with him just not being around as much anymore these days. Super bummed, just personally. The date where he's coming back, the September 1st show, that is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That is about an hour away from where Daniel and I live, and we were going to go to it before Cena was announced, but just circumstances happened, and we weren't actually able to free up our schedules and make it happen. And now I'm really kicking myself, because could have seen Cena. Dang. This was a fun little segment that was up next. LA Knight's music hits, and of course the crowd goes crazy. Everyone has LA Knight fever right now, myself included. And it turns out it is Miz dressed as LA Knight. He does the mannerisms down, or he gets the mannerisms down, he does the pointing, he gets into the ring, he starts the let me talk to ya and the yes. And at first, when he was just doing that, I was on board with the segment, and then like 10 seconds later, and I'm just completely over it. He just ran it all into the ground with all of the catchphrases. He's dipping into the fact that LA Knight is kind of like a Stone Cold trope. He, in between the yeahs, he'll throw in some whats, or he'll start to say what and then go, I mean, yeah. So, it's kind of easy to see where he's drawing the comparisons to. But Miz just talks about how, like, anyone can do this, anyone can pander. He says the fans will cheer for absolutely everything. They cheered him just doing that impersonation. He calls the fans easy. Miz says he doesn't need catchphrases. But then he says when he calls himself awesome, it's because he truly is. But, that doesn't include the when my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. All the other, like, Miz-isms that he's gotten over, throughout the years. And I guess that's also part of, like, the tongue-in-cheek aspect of Miz, of all people, saying he doesn't need catchphrases. But he says that, the fans can cheer for catchphrases all they want, but what the fans don't cheer for is losers. And that's exactly what LA Knight is going to be at Payback. Miz guarantees his victory against Knight at the PLE, this Saturday. We'll see about that. I'm sure Knight is going to have something on SmackDown that's coming up. My money personally is just on LA Knight. I think this is a very basic Miz feud where Miz, the most he can really do is get on the mic about someone, and then he just kind of does a lot of like character. He tries to do like character assassination, I guess, but it's the Miz, so it's not really, well received. And then Miz just loses the feud, as he kind of always does. So hopefully this keeps the surge of momentum in LA Knight's corner. It's just really cool to see what he's doing, where he's gone over just even like the last couple months, ever since the Bray Wyatt feud, which kind of really got his character over. It's just cool to see where he's going right now. I hope that continues. We get a little bit of an abridged version of that Nakamura video package that played last week. They cut quite a bit out of it, but still kind of kept the whole meaning in there. And it cuts backstage again to a molding, this time, Seth Rollins. We finally get that New Day and Viking Raiders match. So Riddle and McIntyre, like I said earlier, they are at the announce desk for the match, and they do ultimately play a role in the finish of this match. It's pretty standard affair, pretty standard tag team. Viking Raiders control the match very, very early on. They do a really good job of keeping Xavier out of Kofi's corner. They just make a lot of quick tags on offense and just really just kind of beat down Xavier and really make you want that Kofi hot tag. Kofi eventually does get that tag in after Xavier is able to elude the Raiders. And Kofi comes in. He has his flurry of fast offense that we all know Kofi Kingston is capable of having. He ends up getting a 2 count on Ivar, but it is not enough. It cuts to a commercial and we come back. The Raiders are in control once again. And this time the roles are reversed, so they're just keeping Kofi away from Xavier. And that goes on for a little while again. We get another hot tag, this time Kofi to Xavier. And it is the exact same situation. Xavier comes in. He gets that little flurry, that little bit of hope. And just before too long, the Raiders are kind of back in control. They're just big dudes, Realistically, like, would you bet on them to like lose a fight? I wouldn't. But the action spills to the outside, and then this is where Riddle and McIntyre being out there really, really matter. Ivar picks up Kofi and then drives him into Riddle and McIntyre. So it's just kind of like, this just pile of bodies that are out by the announce table. But Ivar gets back up, and the Raiders hit Ragnarok on Kofi for the win. And then they are getting out of that ring before Riddle and McIntyre can get back in there to try and, get even. There is a spot right before it kind of plays into the finish of the match. More kind of. After Ivar just throws Kofi, into Riddle and McIntyre. McIntyre gets mad, as you would. Excuse me. And he picks up one of the chairs that they were sitting in, and he throws it, and he tries to hit, I believe it's Eric, but Eric moves, and he ends up hitting Woods, and Woods sells being hit with, like, the office chair, like he got hit by a cannon. Dude just goes down, and he doesn't move, for, like, the rest of the match. And so, after the match, they go out, they're checking on Woods, and Kofi's just kind of telling him, like, hey, like, back off right now, like, this isn't what we need. That plays out again a little later. There's another backstage segment that happens where it also confirms a match for next week with a tornado tag between Riddle and McIntyre and the Raiders. But all just go over that when we get there, I suppose. Let's see, what was next? We got Judgment Day backstage. It is Finn and Priest bickering. Uh, who could have guessed? That seems to be all that they're good at doing these days. Why I'm not bored to death of this yet, I'm not quite sure personally. Normally I find stuff like this absolutely irritating. But I mean, I'm a huge fan of Finn, of Priest, and of Rhea. Kind of indifferent on Dom. So them just all being together in the same group, I've just loved for a very, very long time. So I've just spent so much time liking them that it's getting a little hard to dislike them, just based off of everything that's been going on. But Finn's telling Priest, it's the exact same thing every single week. We need to get on the same page. But Priest is saying that, the group needs to stop putting time and effort into people that don't matter. So he's telling Finn to just forget about JD. Like, JD is not going to be Judgment Day. Stop wasting your time with him. You're with us. And you're kind of, in a way, insinuating that Finn and JD are the reason that, Judgment Day is failing, which one could see as that being the truth. Rhea, again, same thing every single week. Tells him enough. She's over it. She is tired of this whole thing. She throws down just like this ultimatum that if the whole group, the whole Judgment Day, doesn't walk out with some sort of gold on every single member, then some things are going to change around here. She tells Tom to grab the titles, and they walk away. So then it's just Finn and Priest that are left. Priest holds up his briefcase, says, "I've got no problem winning gold." So, it's a whole world of things that could happen, involving either the main event scene with Seth and Nakamura. Priest could always cash in on that, or maybe they do win the titles, or there's just a whole bunch of ways that this could go down on Saturday, and I'm just fully invested in it. I'm super excited to see how this all plays out. We get the incredible video package that played for Bray Wyatt on Friday. They repeat that. We said a lot about it on our Friday show, so I'm not going to go too heavy on what it is here. I'm sure everyone has seen it. It's just a really good, really touching video package, and just hats off to WWE and the WWE production team that threw that together, because it is just such a good way to remember Bray. We get what I was saying earlier. Kofi is coming out of the trainer's room, and Riddle and McIntyre are there, and they're just asking how Xavier is, how he's feeling. Kofi says he's a little banged up, but he'll be fine. McIntyre tries to apologize again, swears he didn't mean it, and Kofi cuts him off, and he's like, "Look, I know you didn't mean it. Woods knows you didn't mean it, and even taking cheap shots isn't even in your repertoire. So we're cool. It's fine. It's water under the bridge. Stuff happens." Drew says he's gonna go find Adam Pearce so he can personally take care of the Viking Raiders, and he wants to do it in a way where he won't have to tag in, which hints at the fact that there's some sort of either tornado or possibly a no DQ setting that's going to be happening next week. It is confirmed later in the show that it will be tornado tag, and Riddle is all giddy because Riddle's like, "Well, he said we," which means he thinks we're a team, and he goes chasing after him and tries to figure out what exactly Drew is getting or has in mind, or what he's planning for next week. So up on the card next is Ludwig Kaiser and Chad Gable. Before the match, Imperium come out all at once, and Gunther starts cutting a promo. He talks about how Gable, yes, did make history by being the first person to beat him in over 500 days, but it was count out, so it kind of doesn't matter. The record books will show Chad got the win, but Gunther still has the championship, and that's all that really matters at the moment. He says that the only thing that Gable has achieved, though, is pissing him off, and now he has all of his attention, and he has all of his focus. And so Gunther doesn't even challenge Gable, just tells him that next week he's going to face him again for the Intercontinental Championship. Gunther acknowledges how close he is to having that reign of the longest Intercontinental Champion in WWE history. He says if Chad Gable is the last thing that is standing between him and that record, so be it. He is going to crush Gable. So then there is an uncontested, it's just undisputed that, Gunther is the most dominant Intercontinental Champion that the WWE has ever seen. He starts talking and some more stuff, but Gable eventually just cuts him off, and then Gable just, is Gable. He's a little snarky, a little smarmy. Basically just tells him that he's going to win next week, and before his match with Ludwig Kaiser, he tells him how he's just going to beat him too. So then the match officially starts. I don't have a whole lot of notes on this one. It was just a really, really good TV match. Gable was quickly becoming one of my personal favorites across just all of wrestling on any roster. And having someone in there like Ludwig that can not only keep up, but is also just a very fantastic wrestler in his own sense. You put these two together, you give them like 10 minutes on TV, and they're going to make something like really, really cool happen. And evident of that was the match that we got tonight. The finish comes with Gable. He does hit the Chaos Theory, but we don't get that pinfall. Instead, Giovanni Vinci comes in and breaks up the pin, resulting in a DQ. Otis comes in to try and help out, but with Gable still down, it is Kaiser and Vinci, and they have no problem disposing of Otis. So then they focus their attention on Gable. At this point, Gunther makes his way out of the back to join in, and he goes for a powerbomb onto Gable. Gable is able to get out of it, reverse it into an ankle lock, and Imperium don't recognize this at first, because as soon as Gunther had him up for the powerbomb, they have their back to him, they're celebrating, they're taunting the crowd, and then they turn around and they see that Gunther's in the ankle lock, and they're like, oh my god, they're losing their minds. They're like, what do we do? So they attack Gable, they get him back down, and then Gunther does hit the powerbomb on him. And commentary is really hammering home about how next week is the only match that stands between Gunther and this Intercontinental Championship reign. And I know last week Andy and I were like, oh, it's definitely Chad Gable's time. We feel it. Well, we also had our dates just completely wrong for when Gunther would actually get the accolade of the reign. And so I don't think anymore it's Chad Gable's time. I think they're going to give him a really competitive match. But since the last one ended with countout, I think this one is going to have a definitive end. And the definitive end is probably Chad eating a powerbomb, if I had to guess. I wouldn't be mad if Gable won, but at this point, with it being so close to Gunther's breaking the reign, you don't do it now. You put Gable on the back burner. You just let him keep getting over, keep getting the organic support, and then maybe one day down the line, we go back to it. But until Gunther breaks that record, no one else needs that title right now. Seth Rollins comes out. He is gonna talk about the Nakamura situation. Something that I noticed. Rollins has one of his side plates. It is the Bray Wyatt Fiend side plate. I thought that was a nice little touch. I wasn't sure if I saw it right the first time. I was like, oh, I don't know what that is, and then it showed more of a clear shot, and I was like, oh, it's a Bray Wyatt side plate. I thought that was just a really nice touch for everything, especially after seeing Seth's video last week about why he wasn't at the show, why he stayed home, and stuff like that. So it was good to see him kind of do his own little thing to remember Bray. But he calls out Nakamura, and Nakamura just doesn't come out. Instead, we get a new kind of Nakamura video It just reiterates more of the same. He just wants to just actually destroy Seth. He wants to be the reason that, Becky has to help him out of bed every morning. He wants to be the reason why he's not going to be able to walk his daughter down the aisle on her wedding day. Like he's saying some really dark stuff, and he just really wants to hurt Seth, and he just wants to get that title and just end Seth Rollins as we know him. Seth isn't very, amused by the video. He calls out the fact that it's super cheap. He's like, I can't believe, this is the same it's not the same Nakamura that, sold out the Tokyo Dome, or the one that lit NXT on fire. And he's just like, where's the old Nakamura? The fact that we're getting this video package is lame. Like, I thought you were better than this. And then he ends up getting hit in the back by Nakamura, who, of course, said on the video package, watch your back. Nothing more really happens after that. Shinsuke gets the upper hand, kicks Seth, and then leaves, and then he's ending up looking strong. I guess go-home math would dictate that Seth wins, since Nakamura got the last laugh on the go-home, but I don't know. I still personally, I kind of want to see Shinsuke win it. We got a Sami and KO promo. They are backstage in the locker room area. Sami is just completely fed up and tired of Judgment Day and dealing with all of the Judgment Day's just squabbles. So he says, if they want to do this, then fine, we'll do it one more time. But they're going to make sure that the Judgment Day can't break the rules and interfere. Kevin Owens says that the match is going to be a Steel City street fight because they're in Pittsburgh. So that'll be fun. A no DQ stipulation. I want to say that JD is going to get involved again, especially now that there's no DQ. And he'll probably play into the finish. It's just whether or not Judgment Day win or if they lose. And if they win, and it's because of JD, is he in the group? Or is that the final straw? There's just so many things that could happen. I know I keep saying this, but I'm just on board for every single one of them. I'm so invested in this. I can't wait to see where it ends up. After that, we've got Tommaso Ciampa and Bronson Reed. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought this match wasn't even going to start because Ciampa comes out first and Bronson just attacks him while he's making his entrance. I thought for sure it was just going to be one of those things where it turns into like a pull-apart brawl and then the match doesn't actually happen because I wasn't sure how much time was left in the show. And I knew that we had the Falls Count Anywhere as the main event. I figured that was going to get a little bit of time. So I thought maybe they were just like, okay, well, we'll just turn this into something else. But it actually turns into like a pretty fun little match. Tommaso Ciampa, big fan of him. Also really into Bronson Reed right now. I think he's doing some good work. Ciampa does this cool part where he hits Reed with an air raid crash. It's always just fun to see a big guy get lifted in the air by a much smaller guy. But there's not a whole lot of action. It's just a lot of like strikes and hard shots. And then Ciampa gets a very ugly looking pin it was kind of like a crucifix bomb maneuver. Barely gets that shoulder down, 3 count, and he's out of there. Bronson looks just flabbergasted and upset that got him. So this probably isn't the end of this. I'm sure there's going to be a longer match down the line. Probably on another episode of Raw, if I had to guess. We go backstage again. Jackie is just going to interview Becky before her match tonight. And just kind of asks, you have a steel cage match in, I think, 6 days, with Trish. Is it really smart doing the Falls Count Anywhere match with Zoe tonight? And Becky says that she knows that, this isn't the easiest way to deal with this situation, but it's kind of like the only way to deal with this situation to put a definitive end to everything. So if she can beat Zoe tonight and beat Trish, then hopefully we are finally done with this drawn out feud. It was fun at first. It was really cool seeing Trish come back and then bring Zoe Stark into the mix. I think it's just gone on a little too long. I know that them not being at SummerSlam was kind of like soul crushing. I was really looking forward to that. I think if everything ended at SummerSlam, I think it would have been a lot better received, obviously. But I mean, Becky's going to be on the card on Saturday, so to me, objectively, that's a good thing. But I wish it was just Becky on the card because of a new feud, not because of like the Trish thing still. But we'll see. We'll see how that all ends. I can't imagine Becky loses that match. And then hopefully Trish is able to move on to something else. Hopefully her and Stark split up. I don't know if they would feud or how that would go. But I mean, Trish is back. So might as well have her explore more options on the roster that aren't Becky Lynch. Just personally. Rhea and Dom come out. They talk about Raquel. Rhea just, basically says, "You're not going to win. I'm going to win." Standard procedure. Raquel does come out, and Raquel absolutely gets the upper hand on Rhea. Just throws into the corner and like overhead suplexes and stuff like that. And it's just an absolute like manhandling of Rhea Ripley, which we never really get. I still don't think Raquel has a chance of actually winning, especially since she's standing tall tonight. I think she's going to lose at the PLE. But I know I wasn't too into this last week, but now I kind of am. I think it's just going to be cool to see, two powerhouse women just throw down with each other. And Rhea normally is the only like powerhouse in a match. So I think having another powerhouse in there that can actually dish it back, which is something that Rhea isn't used to, I think it's just going to make for a fun little match type. As long as they give it, like 10 minutes or so on the card, I think something really, really fun could come out of this. And then finally, we have our main event of the night. We have Becky Lynch and Zoe Stark in a Falls Count Anywhere match. So Becky comes out first. She does her standard entrance. Zoe comes out, of course, with Trish. Zoe has a kendo stick. Becky, seeing this, she grabs one from under the ring as well. So you get this little like standoff. Bell rings, and they basically just both go for kendo stick strikes. It does not go well for Zoe at all. Becky is easily able to get the upper hand with just a lot of kendo hits. Trish ends up actually helping out. She hits Becky with a kendo stick before she can really start laying into Zoe. There was the spot. Trish starts forming kind of like a pool of chairs in the middle of the ring. And I don't know if this was, I assume it was a botch. The very first chair that Trish throws in happens to just hit Zoe in the face. So Zoe sells it. Thankfully, in character, she just looks really annoyed and fed up. And she's like, really? Like, can you just help out? And like Trish is apologizing on the outside and is like, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. That was an accident." And Zoe's just like, just whatever, like get the chairs in here. Just like keep doing what you're doing. So maybe that will actually, kind of help sow some dissension if Zoe does end up turning on Trish or something like that. Even just this one little like one-off moment could really help play out that storyline. What else? So that pile of chairs just kind of stays in the ring for a little while. They don't get really utilized until towards the end of the match. And even then, it's not involved with the finish. It's just more towards the end of the match. So the pile of chairs, they're just kind of chilling out in there. Trish does something, and Becky starts giving chase around the ringside area. Trish is running around trying to avoid Becky. On the I guess the second lap around the ring, Trish grabs a kendo stick, and Becky, puts on the brakes. She's like, "Whoa, okay, not gonna get involved with that." Trish goes to, strike Becky with the kendo stick. Becky easily catches it, takes it, and then just starts laying in shots from literally the ringside area all the way up the ramp, drives Trish back into the back. After Trish leaves, Zoe Stark is actually just right behind Becky with a chair, just to kind of get back control of the situation. There's a spot when they come back to ringside. Becky tries to get a table. Tables always get huge pops. Zoe ends up stopping the table from getting set up. And I don't believe it ever actually gets set up after that. There's a couple table spots, but they're not involving that table. So it was kind of like a table red herring, which made the other table spots that much cooler, because then it was like, oh, these tables were always here. We finally get the pile of chairs used. Becky hits a superplex on Zoe onto the chairs. That only got a 2 count. The fact that that's a 2 count is wild. Probably should have been a 3 count, or just don't do it. I don't know. Trish does come back out to save Zoe from a manhandle slam. At this point, they're on the outside of the ring again, specifically on top of the announce table. So, Becky's going for that manhandle slam. Trish gets involved, and Trish, they drag Becky over to, like, the timekeeper's area, and there's a bunch of, like, stage cases and all that other stuff. And Trish actually hits Becky with a bulldog through a table that happened to be outside of the timekeeper area. Doesn't get the win, doesn't, get the 3 count or anything like that, but they keep kind of battling around a lot of like road cases and risers, and there's conveniently other tables that are set up in the immediate vicinity. I wonder how those are gonna, be involved. So they get Trish and Zoe get Becky on top of one of the road cases. It looks like they're gonna try and like suplex her through a table, like a tandem suplex. Becky's able to fight out of it. Zoe goes for a punch. She accidentally punches Trish off the riser, or it might have been the road case. And Trish goes through a table, so Trish takes a table bump. And then Becky is able to take advantage of the situation. She grabs Zoe, hits with a manhandle slam through another table that was on the other end of the road case. And that is enough for the 3. So I thought this match was really, really fun. Falls Count Anywhere's matches are always, I think, by definition, fun. As long as they actually like leave the ring and the stipulation makes sense. No one likes a Falls Count Anywhere match where the pinfall still happens in the ring. Could have just been a no DQ match. But I thought the stipulation was really, really fun. Seeing Trish take the table bump was neat. The manhandle slam through the table was obviously a great way to finish the match. Really excited for the steel cage match on Saturday. More so for the fact that it does finally just feel like it's the blow off. And I just want to see Becky move on to something. I want to see Trish move on to something. I just don't want to really see them together anymore. But yeah, at the very end of the broadcast, Becky has her Bray armband that she takes off. She holds it up and she just starts like crying. She just loses it. She looks so emotional. And that's the lasting image that we get as it goes off the air. So yeah, what did you guys think of Monday Night Raw today? Like I said, I thought it was a pretty good episode. I'm super curious about the Intercontinental Championship match that is going to be happening next week. I would have loved for it to be on the pay-per-view, but I understand not wanting too many matches on that card, because then the card either goes long or the matches that need time get time cut. So I can understand that. It'll be a reason to tune into Raw again on Monday. And hopefully we'll see the direction that Gunther's reign is headed towards. Really hope he holds on to it. But yeah, just wanted to thank you guys for watching. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you want to see more videos from us here. But yeah, this has been Garrett for Sheer Drop Wrestling, signing off.